Anyway, the Lord is good. He was helping me along. He gave me a lesson in the 12th grade I never forgot. And it didn't change me at the time, but I never forgot. You know, we had this big game in our varsity, in our high school. I was playing on the basketball team. We were playing another high school. It was a Christmas tournament. To me, my world revolved around that basketball game. I lived and died. I breathed basketball and sports. So we were playing a basketball game. We were behind by, I don't know, a few points. Anyway, we caught up at the end. And I think we were ahead. And with about 20 seconds left in the game, our opponent, they scored. We were behind by 1 point, 10 seconds left in the game. Called a timeout. Coach talked to us, got a strategy of play. Game started again. I got the ball with about 3 seconds left. 2, and I took a shot. 1, and then the horn went off. The buzzer went off. Game was over. The ball is in the air. I'm looking at that ball, and I had this realization, this revelation. I think the Lord was helping me to see something. If that ball went in the hoop, then I was a hero. If it did not, then I was a failure. My destiny was hinging on the direction of that basketball. I thought, this is crazy. And the good news is it went in. I was a hero for a day or two. You know, Philippians 2:3, let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. I'll tell you what vainglory is. It's glory that is vain, that is short-lived, that is fleeting. So I was a hero for a day or two. Then it was all forgotten. And I never forgot, but everybody else forgot. That's vainglory. And I realized that these things which are eternal, 2 Corinthians 4:18, these things that are eternal, that should occupy our minds and our attentions. Not these things that just are fleeting and temporal and give no lasting joy. So I was learning these things in high school, learning lessons that I would have to unlearn. And it was not easy. Until I was like 35, 36 years old, 37 years old, I finally began to see a different form of recreation, but it took a while. Often, when we think about education, we think, what are we going to learn? But a lot of times the question should be, what are we not going to learn? If I go to school out there in the desert, what will I learn? On the other hand, what are some things that I won't learn? So John the Baptist, he grew up in the desert. His school, the book of nature. It says in Luke chapter 1 verse 80 that John was in the desert until a showing forth unto Israel. I don't know what he was learning out there, but I know it was a lot of valuable lessons. One lesson he was learning is steadfastness, because in Matthew chapter 11 verse 7, Jesus asked the question, what went ye out to see? What did you go out to see? A reed shaken in the wind? No. John was not shaken by the popular opinion and the influences of those around him. He was rock solid. He didn't waver. What did you go out to see? A reed shaken in the wind? Not John. He was the same at the River Jordan as he was in the dungeon. A man after God's own heart. And then Jesus says in Matthew 11 verse 11, that there was never a prophet greater than John born of a woman. He was learning that out there in the desert. He was learning not to be a puppet of those around him. He was learning steadfastness. He was learning to be true-hearted. When John the Baptist came down to the Jordan, and he declared, John 1:29, behold the Lamb of God that taketh away the sin of the world. You know, John the Baptist was called John the Baptist not because he was a Baptist. He was a baptizer. He would take the people, baptize them in the River Jordan. Now that was a symbol of a death to selfishness. Romans 6 verse 4, you'd rise up and walk in newness of life. So John the Baptist, his interest was in transformation of the heart, not an outward transformation, but an inward. If you get the outward right, but the inward is not, then you've really got a factory turning out Pharisees. You want to see a heart change. And that was what John the Baptist was after. You know, when he lived his life, kind of a peculiar man in a sense. And Matthew 3 verse 4, it said his clothing, his girdle was camel's hair, And he had a big old leather belt on. Kind of probably, he dressed the way we imagine that Elijah might have dressed back here in the Old Testament. The clothes of a prophet. And he was also pretty interested in health too. Because his diet, he was eating locust, and that's the locust pod from the black locust tree. Kind of looks like, we call it today carob. Eating honey, that would have been, organic, raw, unfiltered honey. And eating those foods that he could obtain out there in the desert. John was a Renaissance man, getting educated out in the desert with an education that would serve him no matter what purpose God had called him to. And so there was John, out there in the desert. There were a lot of lessons he never learned. And if you don't learn bad habits, you don't have to unlearn them. In John 3:29, the followers of John came to John. They said, look, your followers are going after Jesus. You're losing your crowd. And John the Baptist explained. He said, I am not the bridegroom. I'm not the Messiah. I'm just a friend of the bridegroom. He was overjoyed to see that his followers were now becoming followers of the bridegroom, of the Messiah, of Jesus. Where did he learn to think like that? In John 3 verse 30, I'm going to decrease, he's going to increase. Where did he learn to think like that? My dear friends, he did not learn it in public school. He learned it out there in the desert. And when I was in elementary school, I was learning to strive to be first. I learned it in the game out there in the basketball court. We would run up and down there, August. It was hot as blazes out there, up and down all day long in the summer. I go home, my mom would say to me, she'd say, son, you run up and down there all day long, it's 100 degrees, it's August. And you can go back and forth all day long. You come home, you won't make up the bed, you won't wash a dish. What is the problem? She did not understand. Out there on the basketball court, I was learning to be first. I was learning to compete and to strive. I was learning to beat the other man. And there's great joy when you got somebody down and you beat them. Relentlessly just beat them. And whatever it may be, whether it's chess, whether it's checkers, whether it's basketball, whether it's the Super Bowl, the World Cup, the World Series, whether it's a political race in Washington, whether it's a scholastic aptitude, my child was an honor student, whether it's Miss Universe or Miss America, the outward physical beauty, whatever it may be, whatever the competition may be. There's a striving in the carnal heart to win, to be first. And if you see somebody fall, you just want to step right over them because there's room at the top and this is where I'm going. John didn't learn that out there in the wilderness. No, he didn't learn that lesson. He was learning, well, I got to go low, Jesus can go high. Ecclesiastes 5:8, he's higher than the highest. And John said, I'll be lower than the lowest. Let Jesus step up and take the throne of my life. Let me step down and worship the bridegroom. Have a blessed day.